someone I knew was coming out. And they said, Jimmy, I hope you don't need toilet paper. And I said, well, that's not exactly what I came to get. And they said, well, that's good. So
Okay,
there's none here. So I get in the store, here's these empty shelves. One of them where toilet paper used to be, one where paper towels used to be. Anything to do with disinfecting, gone. Anything elderberry, anything like that, gone.
Yep. I'll be like it for a while. I call to order the emergency meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020 at 6 o'clock. As always, we'll start by invocation. If you would, please stand with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, right now we just pray for guidance. Lord, just pray for everything to just be calm. Lord, we know that you're in control. Lord, right now we just ask you to guide this meeting for us, Lord, and just thank you for the many blessings you've given us. We pray for those who are sick right now. We just ask you to put your healing hand on them. And Lord, just ask forgiveness where we fail you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Please continue standing for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I get start with the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Next, we'll talk about our recommended commissioners' meeting schedule changes. You see on the second page there, our upcoming meetings recommended by our county attorney, Mr. Browder. March 19th, the budget goal session is going to be canceled. 23rd, regular commissioners meeting canceled. April 6th, the E&R meeting that was scheduled has been rescheduled for May 4th. April 7th, the planning meeting scheduled for that has been rescheduled to June the 2nd. April 16th, League of Government meeting has been canceled. 14th, regular commissioners meeting has been canceled. And the NCACC district meeting scheduled for April 28th in Wilkesboro is more likely to be canceled. We'll just have to kind of go with it from there and see how that goes. Is there any questions about that?
I have some comments, questions.
Go ahead.
Is Ty coming tonight?
Ty is not, he said he's available by phone, but he is heeding caution and
Oh, okay.
not getting in the public a lot at this point.
Smart man.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with the cancellations. I think I have some concerns about during this big crisis that we have, us just checking out, sort of. So what I would like to talk to Ty about is the possibility or some discussion on what we do if in this very dynamic environment that we're in as a Board of Commissioners, if important decisions need to be made. I was reading on School of Government site today about electronic meetings, and Frida Bloomstein's got a whole bunch of information on there about that. So I'm good with canceling the meetings, but I think we do need to have a discussion about us being engaged during this crisis, the whole board, not just individuals from the board.
And I would echo that also.
Okay.
With what Commissioner Morris just said. I'm on the board of trustees for Forsyth Tech. They have come up with their response on what they would like to do. We're having a teleconference meeting Friday. That's the board of trustees along with the president of Forsyth Tech. And that's to, once again, the social distancing. They didn't want to get a group of trustees all in one room together. So we'll be doing that by phone conference. And I think if we have any emergency meeting or emergency items that we need to take up, we can work that out.
Mr. Walker, do you like to add anything?
Please. I'm not quite sure how this particular assortment of meetings came into being. I know Ty has his way of looking at it. I don't know whether his area is legal. Our area is policy. And and this to me is spilling over to policy, a recommendation that, is our attorney making a legal recommendation regarding these? And I'd like to know more about it from that perspective, if that's his basis, because policy is what we're here to do.
Mhm.
And legal is what he is empowered to do. Now, where I'm kind of confused, and don't say what else is new. Thank you. But I read this set of recommendations from our president, and I have a lot of confidence in our president's ability to deal with critical type situations. He's someone that seems to be able to be in control, be on top of issues when he needs to be. He's referencing 15 days from the time this came into being. But what we're looking at goes out much beyond that. So are we just assuming his 15-day plan is not going to work?
I don't think Ty's assuming it's not going to
No,
work.
no, hold it, please.
I thought you were asking a question.
No, sorry. No, that was a collective we. And are we just kind of thinking that at the end of the 15 days that he's implemented to stop the spread of this, it's going to need to go on for another month beyond, better part of a month beyond that? I'm not sure how the pieces are fitting together at this point. I'm thinking more in terms of his 15 days, which would bring us to the end of the month. Now, there's information coming out all the time, I'm sure. Commissioner Morris, others might have, our staff might have information that is more current than what I have. I have what's from our governor, and I have from what's from our president. And I know the governor asked for 2 weeks with the schools, brings it to the end of the month. President asked for 15 days, brings it to the end of the month. But what our attorney, and I don't know, again, what all his criteria is, I hope he's not trying to be a commissioner and set policy. But our attorney recommends through the, he recommends through about mid-April, which would bring us to the meeting in late April for our next commissioners meeting. Now, my understanding, and I've also thought about what Commissioner Morris mentioned, what if we have an emergency in the meantime? What if we have an emergency before the end of the month? Well, this cancels meetings, but it does nothing prohibitive about calling an emergency meeting, not that I'm aware of. So if we needed an emergency meeting to address critical issues, it certainly would be within the range of possibilities if we needed to. It would be nice if we could do it remotely, do it through teleconference or something. But I don't think the provisions of the open meeting laws will allow that. So that takes what would have been a good option off the table.
I'm not sure they may.
They may bring that into effect.
Yeah, I was reading Frida's stuff today, and she had all kind of options for doing electronic meetings.
Good. That would be an option.
Or even having part of the board there and the others on electronic.
Right. I think that would sort of raise some questions by some of our public, some of our citizens possibly, if we chose that option. But these are unusual times, and they require, I suppose, unusual measures in dealing with it.
Fortunately, we've never had to deal with this before. This is something new to everybody. With everything that's going on right now and the restrictions and stuff going on, I think more what our attorney's looking at here, some of these meetings require money to advertise, to put out there. So if you already spend that money of advertising it, then you had to cancel it. Well, that's pretty much throwing money down the drain.
Well, it is, but considering the magnitude of the issue we're dealing with, to me, that's almost inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in just throwing money around necessarily, but we're talking a small amount of money and we're dealing with a big issue.
Yep.
So that to me is, the amount of money advertising, that sort of thing is not a deciding factor. That's not a decision-making type of aspect of this issue. What I'm looking for is reasonableness, a degree of safety for our citizens, and common sense. Now, our citizens, to some degree, and everybody's aware of how things are in the stores, panic buying. I was talking to some of our folks in the audience earlier about someone in the meat department brings out a box of chicken, for example, or a box of ground beef. The worker from the meat department cannot get it on a shelf. There's people grabbing it out of the box before they can even get it on the shelf. I might be the oldest person in this room. I bet I am. Anybody older than 75? I didn't think so. But I've never seen anything like this anywhere near it in my 75 years. And we've had H1N1, we've had MERS, we've had SARS, we've had swine flu, which I think is a version of H1N1. We've had bird flu. Some of that pretty bad stuff. I've never seen anything like what we're dealing with right now in 75 years. It's new ground. And I've never seen the amount of panic there is. And I don't want to add to that. I don't want to be a part of making a decision that creates more panic. Well, the board postponed all our meetings through April, to the end of April. I want to see us start reeling this thing in, both from a preventive measure, the 15 days to slow the spread type thing, stop it in its tracks. But I want to see some of this panic start diminishing. Commissioner Morris mentioned earlier the stock market, I believe, plummeted like a rock, lost about a third of its value in 15 days. And the last time that happened was, I don't even want to think about when it was. But there's so much going on that nothing is simple as we try to deal with this. My preference, I guess if I have one regarding this, would be to go through the end of March with cancellations and then see how things are, see which direction this thing is headed in. Is it getting better? Can we be comfortable bringing back on board some of our meetings going into April? Or is it not improved enough to change it? Do we need to continue with canceling meetings? But I just don't want to see knee-jerk decisions at this point. I think there's been way too many of them already.
It would be. I think it's just being more precautious right now. Everybody's, and of course, you're right. Some people have gone into panic mode for no reason. So,
ever. And I don't know what it's going to take for that to start running its course. I think we have a variety of issues here. One is we have a flu that's out there, and so I don't think we have. Last time I checked with Shannon, I don't think, did we have any confirmed cases in Stokes County yet? None. So 0 confirmed cases in Stokes County, and our people are panicking like I've never seen anything close to in my life. And so having trouble, as I said here, and I know I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer anymore. I do the best I can. But I'm having trouble fitting the pieces together in a way that makes sense. No cases in Stokes County, and yet 46,000 people, and we're looking at canceling meetings through the end of April.
on the recommendation of the county manager right here, if you kind of want to go back and look at this right here, maybe canceling everything down to April 7th, and of course, planning meeting, what was that consisting of? This, so was it solar farm?
David was fine with changing that to June because that was going to be 4 different things here. Ty's concern of that meeting was one of those was doing another solar farm, and we didn't know what the CDC may recommended for public gatherings at that point, and you wouldn't be able to get everybody in this room safely in accordance with their guidelines. So it was more comfortable pushing that one out for sure and not wasting the $1,000 to advertise it and then not being able to have everybody in the room. So that was the reason for Ty on that one for sure.
If y'all want to come back up to April 16th and start back at that League of Government meeting and try to put it back on schedule
The
for
town
now.
of Danbury canceled that, because
Okay,
that's
so
their
town of Danbury
suggestion,
gonna
they
do it.
canceled that.
Okay.
Only thing I would start would be the April 14th. If you actually kept it on schedule, and if something come up to where it would, this virus has spread in Stokes County to where it'd be harmful for anyone to come out, then you could cancel that meeting if you wanted to do that.
Okay. How's the board feel about still putting the April 14th meeting back on, regular meeting?
Well, that's in line with what I was offering as a suggestion.
Okay.
I don't want, one thing, if I
Just
may,
cancel
Mr. Chairman.
one meeting then if you do that, right?
Well, we would be canceling the,
One regular meeting. I'm talking about.
the last meeting in March, second meeting in March. But one thing, and I've talked to a fair number of people about this, y'all probably have too. And a word that I have heard over and over again to a person, no one took a different view, is this is, in everybody's opinion I've talked with, an overreaction. A major overreaction in some people's opinion. But an overreaction in everyone's opinion that I've had the opportunity to talk with. And this was young and old, and some over here, some over there type people, but without exception, except people that were directly connected to government itself. And that's kind of a different view towards something like this. But general citizens to a person, everyone is saying overreaction. And I just don't want to add to that.
I understand. I mean, I kind of agree. I think it's kind of overreacted some too. But then again, what happens if we didn't do enough to prevent it, and then it spread? Then you kind of get back and say, "Well, I wish we would have done more." So you're kind of stuck at that point, right? Because we just don't know which way this thing's going to turn.
That same group will chastise you after you didn't react.
Hey, I'm gonna get
And it goes
chastised. I'm gonna get
straight, you know.
chastised either way I go anyway, Commissioner.
Not as bad as it would if you,
Where's your crystal ball?
yeah, the standard practice for diseases is to overreact deliberately.
And cause panic like we've never seen in this country in my time that I can remember ever before. And that's what in some people's view, this overreaction is contributing to, which is a health issue on its own. I'm looking for the common sense and wisdom in this. What can we do to address the issue but not contribute to this other side of the problem? And this, having scheduling our April 14th meeting, I think is a step in the right direction. We didn't cancel the League of Government meetings. The town of Danbury did that, so I don't think it's within our range of options to twist their arm to have it. Planning meeting, that's one that's, I can say either or. My preference would be to go ahead and plan for it, see how things are when it gets a little closer to that time.
Well, that one's already been rescheduled to June 2nd, just like the ENR's been
Okay,
rescheduled.
so it's already been, somebody's already,
And
Done.
those had to be decided on yesterday in order to make the deadline to the paper to get them advertised for the 2 weeks before. Those are expensive ads, and rather than try to spend that money and have to reschedule, they were fine with doing those.
and in fairness to the situation, the ENR meeting scheduled for April 6th has been rescheduled, but normally we don't have people come to those anyway. Every now and then we will, but usually it's just us sitting up here and no one else here for the meeting. So if we could add back in the April 14th Commissioners meeting, that would put, I'd have more comfort with that. I'd be more comfortable with that. As far as the NCACC district meeting, that's
I won't be able to do this
probably
anyway.
out of our hands. That's in somebody else's bailiwick, so to speak.
I have no problem with that, Commissioner Morris.
I'm good with that. I would also say that we pay special attention to any need for an emergency meeting and quickly call one if the situation warrants it, to be determined by all those professionals who are dealing with this.
I would like to add one thing. Are you finished? I'd like to add one thing to Commissioner Morris's suggestion. And that is if by chance, was it Frida Bluestein you referenced? You mentioned I've worked with her over the years. Very sharp person, very knowledgeable. If they come up with a way to do teleconferencing, handle things that way, then that would be useful information also. If there's options because of the technology that's available today that we could benefit from, I'd like to know about those whenever that information becomes available.
Okay.
It's on the website. If you just bring up the School of Government, it's right there. You can look it up even.
There's a lot of stuff on there right now about this situation.
About this
in the School of
particular-
Government with electronic meetings and all that. So you can read a
It's
ton of
all
stuff
under
about
the
that.
virus. It's all under the virus heading there on their website, so.
Commissioner Mendenhall, are you fine with this?
Yes, I can certainly go along with this planned meeting on April the 14th. Two things. One, I think Commissioner Walker mentioned was trying to use common sense. My dad taught me a long time ago that common sense will take you a long way. And I think I can go along with April 14th, okay. But Commissioner Nicholson, I think we need to also at the same time, you know, I was looking, the reason I came in late is I was watching what the state guidelines have just come out to be. I waited to the last minute to see if Governor Cooper was going to make any changes for the state. And, you know, a lot of restaurants are closing down. All the institutions of the UNC system are closing. They were interviewing a student at North Carolina A&T that lives in Ohio, and she had to be out of her dorm at by 3 o'clock Friday. She had no way to pack up everything, had no help, didn't know how she was going to get back to her home in Ohio. And this is coming as mandates from the governor. And I think we need to stay as close as possible to federal and state mandates as we can. And as Commissioner Walker said, President Trump issued a 15-day, and that does get us into April. So I can go with that, but I do want to read this quote. And it goes back a little bit to what Commissioner Morris said. In the end, it will be impossible to know if we overreacted or did too much, but it will be quite apparent if we underreacted or did too little. And that's just a quote I want everybody to remember. I'm certainly good with April 14th, but I think we need to keep our eye on it. I think we've been very blessed that we do not have any cases here in Stokes County. I saw where about 5:30 they came on and said Guilford County had just had their first case confirmed in Guilford, 2 in Forsyth, but the majority of ours in North Carolina has been in Wake County. So I've tried to keep up with it. I mean, when you have 50 states and the only state in West Virginia is the only state that does not have a confirmed case. Not quite sure what they got going on in West Virginia that the other 49 states do not have. I'd like to know when you, Commissioner Nicholson, know what they're doing in West Virginia. But I can go along with that.
I wonder about that.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, is what I'm saying is, I do believe in common sense, but I do believe that we need to keep a close eye on this. And I know our health department is constantly and probably in touch it's evolving so quickly. You know, they said this virus was 3 times as contagious as the flu virus. And I think that was a big thing to me. And you're how old, Commissioner Walker?
75.
75.
Hold it a second.
Okay.
Almost 76.
But no, I can go on April 14th, but I can go on with it as long as everything keeps running smoothly.
Okay.
If we started having some confirmed cases here, I'm not looking after that's not to look after myself. I'm not going to tell my age how old I
I
am.
was about to ask you, how old are you?
I'm just barely, I'm right there near that cutoff point, and I'm not over yet, so I'm not getting the extra. Yeah, I think I can go with April 14th with no problem, but I would like for us, and I'd really like for our health department to stay in close contact with our commissioners to keep us up to date on things. I'm sure they will.
And of course, if we have any emergency meetings, is there any lead time that we need to get the public on that, Shannon? How long's,
I just need, well, emergency meetings, I just think they can post within a 24-hour period.
Okay.
Special meetings 48, but yeah,
Emergency, you can actually post after the meeting what the reason is.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment on the positive side, I hope, regarding this virus and all that it seems to be causing. I personally, now you folks may know of a lot of other cases, and you may have information that supersedes what I'm about to share. But I personally am aware of 2 cases. I'm aware of a kind of detailed description by people who have it or have had it. One was a gentleman coming off a cruise ship. The reporter was there, and he asked a man, or she, may have been a lady, asked them what it was like to have this virus. He said, well, I had a dry cough for a couple of days, and I had a fever for 8 hours. And while I had the fever, I felt kind of weak and dragged out. But after that, I felt fine. He said, wasn't all that much to it. Well, then we have this NBA superstar or basketball player. Y'all might have heard of it. And he was confirmed to have it. And he wanted to play in the game that night, from what I've heard. He said, yeah, I have it, but I sure was hoping I could go ahead and play in the game tonight. So it sounds like, compared to the H1N1 and bird flu and some of these real baddies, and just the ordinary flu that hits people and pounds them for a week or so, all of us has had the flu, and it's not a fun thing in any way to try to deal with. It sounds like this coronavirus, or whatever they're calling it, something number 19 now, I believe, is much, much milder than just a general flu. But it apparently, who said it's 3 times more contagious? But yeah, apparently it is more contagious, but much, much milder if a person should have to get it. Now, at any given time, our health director could tell us this probably, but at any given time, what would be the estimate of how many folks in Stokes County, with our 46,000 people, would have the flu at this time of the year? Got to be a pretty good number. And for Guilford County, with their, better part of 1 million people, or hundreds and hundreds of thousands, for them to have 1 case, it sounds like it's being pretty well controlled, and hopefully it'll continue to be. But
That's what the social distancing for.
Yeah.
But we hadn't got to the crunch point
you're too
yet.
close to me, by the way.
We hadn't got to the crunch point yet.
You're not 6 feet away.
There's 2 40-year-old doctors in New Jersey in ICU, critical condition, with
From this.
healthy doctors.
I
Yes.
just, and the
Yeah,
reason,
So
makes
you
you
can't
wonder.
make assumptions that how it's going to affect people, because it's very dangerous to.
I think the reason that we are in as good a shape as we are at this point are the guidelines that President Trump put into place so quickly.
Mhm.
You know, he cut off people people coming into our country from different countries. And if you look at what's happened to Italy And that was because they had open borders. And they just let anybody in. And now they have had thousands pass away. And I think the federal government has taken a strong stance. I know a lot of them, they say, are suggestions and guidelines, but they are really emphasizing that if we want to contain this and come out of this ahead of the curve, we need to follow these guidelines. And that's all I'm saying.
The disease expands exponentially. It can be 2 cases today and 2,000 before you can bat your eyes. So,
And the biggest thing is it might be, tell me how many days before you see symptoms on it and you already have it? 2 to 14. So, I mean, you might be walking around and have it and not even know yet. So, and it takes, 72 hours to get test results back on it? So that's the most dangerous thing about this. If you got the flu, you can find out, within a matter of minutes. So.
One more comment, this is kind of peripheral, not directly tied to the subject, but I just wish that all this panic wasn't taking place.
Yeah, we all.
It just doesn't help the situation in any way and complicates it in some ways. And if there's any way to start kind of offsetting that, anything our board or any board can do to reassure the citizens that there's no need for this high level of panic, the fear factor, I think we kind of owe it to our citizens and to ourselves to be looking for things that might help with that.
we got one last thing too. I don't know if it's part of this discussion we're having now. I'd like to get regular communications on what's going on with this by email from Brandon, Health Department, whoever's collectively working it with State Emergency Management and all that, because I communicate with a lot of people through my blog, and I'd like to be able to put things in there and really be kept up to date with what's going on, not just for information purposes, because we get asked questions about it a lot. So if you guys would think about how we might do that on almost a daily basis, probably, some level of update.
We'll go ahead and move on to items of consideration for the Board of Commissioners requiring approval. I'll turn this over to County Manager Jay Cook.
Mr. Chairman, board members, there are certain areas that we can look at to try to help combat this virus and keep our citizens safe, a little more safe. And here are some items for you to consider, and or maybe if you'd like to put in place and approval. But also, one of the things is the tax office currently has a way of collecting taxes online. Or a lot of other counties, they are waiving the fees on these on this tax payment. We currently use an outside vendors, and everything goes through them. So the fee is applied strictly to the taxpayer if they choose to use that type of payment. But we would like to waive these fees so that those who are wishing to pay online or utilize this online would allow them to do so without coming up here, and because some people won't pay that fee. And we're just hoping this will encourage the people to follow the guidelines that the CDC has in place and not interact with the public unnecessarily, because here is a area that if you had to pay a car tax so you could get your tags or something for the next 30 days or something, then here's a way to do it without having to come up here and, like I said, and unnecessarily interact with folks. We would like to offer this to our citizens from March the 23rd through April the 30th, and the cost would be incurred by the county's expense. You also have some paperwork here that the tax office has put out showing the basic how much fees or tax bills was paid per month last year, and you will see the March, April, May, and June. I got the tax administrator to give you that information on what was paid. What was the interest rates and fees for that month? If you've done all 4 months, it would cost the county what the taxpayers paid last year in the amount of $4,000 in fees and transactions. So if you've done the 9 days in April, in March, you would probably occur approximately about $48 in fees. If you've done all the month of April, then you would occur approximately $1,600, close to $1,700 in fees. So we're figuring a total of under the amount of $2,000, as you can see in here. This is something you can do to help combat the interaction with people on that. Second, we would suggest that you would look at the public works as far as their water and sewer and the billing that they do on that. We would suggest that due to anyone being out of work due to sickness or having to stay at home with their children or whatever reason, or look after someone that is sick that's not working or getting paid, then that we would not cut their water off during this time. So that was something for you can consider there. Number C, during this time of events of any emergencies that may require funding, you are asking that the board will grant permission for the county commissioners, the chairman, and the finance director to take care of any kind of business that may come up that would be an emergency, something breaking during this time that you are out and we're not able to have a board meeting or two that would allow you to have budget amendments to take care of the funding on that. So anything really, really, really big, you know, we're going to get on the phone, we're going to call you. All of you are going to know about it. But say a heating unit broke and we need to fix and repair that. So that would be something that we'd be able to purchase and move on with it. And then later, and when everything was back to normal, you would see the budget amendment come through. So that would be handling that payment. Also, during the time that we are encouraging folks to distance themselves, you know, you may have folks here and employees here that will may be out or unable to work due to the lack of child care. The schools are shutting down, and we are asking employees to utilize the sick leave, and that's through state's instructions. That being said, that we are having employees, and you may have some employees that may not have ample time to take off. And we do not want to make sure that we send someone home or they have to go home and they're sitting here and financially in trouble because of lack of pay, with no pay on their check. What we're asking here is, if normally when something like that happens, each department, myself, Julia, there's a lot of people steps up. You got some good people here in this county, steps up and gives these folks sick leave out of their own. But it only can be done if it's done through FMLA, family leave. We're asking if the board will approve to allow us to let these folks share some time with them that are new hires or someone that's really been down on their lucks and have to use all their sick leave or whatever reason, that the other employees can interact with them and take care of and share with them and let them know that, like they've always done, they care about their fellow employee. If it ever gets to the point that it is, God forbid, serious, and a lot of people are at home, and it gets to the point that I don't have enough time to share and give somebody, then I'm asking the commissioners to give the sick leave in advancement to these employees that are out, so that they will make sure that there is a paycheck coming to them, and they're able to conduct their business and meet their demands that they have placed on themselves, and just living and having what they do have, and make sure that they are able to buy food and look after their children and family. So that would be an advancement in sick leave, that in the future, once everything is going back to normal, as they earn this sick leave, it would be taken off. Here is 4 areas that you could look at and you can consider. You would like to do it. I would recommend that you would. hopefully we don't have to use a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you want to look at the tax office, to do that, but there is something there if you wanted to restrict the public access to the people coming out, and give them a chance to take care of payment, and we would absorb the cost in that. So I don't know. It's up to you guys to consider.
I just want to confirm one thing on item D. Is this for, like, in an event that they have employees who are sick and unable to come to work due to childcare?
Or sickness.
Or sickness.
Yes. Yes. We just want to make sure that no one is put in a predicament to where they can't afford to buy food or lose their house or lose their car or whatever. We want to make sure that they're able to meet the needs that they have started in life with their families.
Thank you. Looking at these four, I'm certainly, without any doubt, after reading over them, I'm in favor of them. The Family Medical Leave Act, I think, is an outstanding act where you can loan sick days to other people to help them out in times of need. And I think we're in unknown times. We can talk about the flu, H1N1, all of that, but this is a situation where we've never dealt with anything like this in the United States and all over the world. To see the people coming back to the U.S. from other countries and the lines they had to go through, have their temperature checked before they were allowed in. We are here to help our citizens in Stokes County. That's our job, is to try to help people, our constituents, the people that live in Stokes County. And to me, I mean, the things that you're asking for, if they get sick or someone in their family gets sick, or as we already know, schools are out for the next 2 weeks. And many families, you don't like to call a school like daycare to take care of children, but that's actually what it is for a lot of people. I mean, they have to work. The majority of people have to work for a living. And they don't have the money, they're used to sending them to school. So now all of a sudden, what are they going to do? Are they going to take off work and stay at home with them? Or, there's a lot of options out there, but I think the federal guidelines have said anything that you can do to curtail this coronavirus as quickly as possible, we need to do. He started out by saying 15 days, but if everybody heard the conference yesterday and they asked when did they really think it would be brought back down and curved off permanently? I don't know if any of y'all heard the timeline, but he said, President Trump said July or possibly August before we can get this totally under control, which I watched that entire. So it'd be wonderful if we can get this curtailed in 2 weeks. That'd be great. I just don't see that happening in any way. And so I think we got to look, I think we need to be proactive, not reactive, not waiting to something happens to act on it. We need to be looking ahead. And these 4 items right here, and I'm going to let my other commissioners speak, not take up any more time, but I'm certainly good with all 4. And I'll thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you. I agree with a good bit of Commissioner Mendenhall's comments, well stated. Who came up with these items of consideration, by the way, if I may ask?
We talked about this yesterday when we had department head meetings. All of our department heads got together and we talked about issues that's going on and how we can combat this and help the public and the staff. And there was a lot of good information that come from all the department heads on what could be done and how it could be done. And even when you got this right here, you see how Richard come in and says, here's how I can do things here to make sure that we keep our public safe and doing a lot of electronic type stuff. So it come from a large discussion with our department heads. And Shannon and I are sitting down and making sure we come up and really brainstorm in a manner that we are being proactive and making sure that we've got something in place instead of catching ourselves with our pants down and having to pull them up and getting caught.
I want to compliment you for doing something I think is a good step in the right direction. I've always supported our employees, want them to have favorable working conditions, be compensated in a manner that's as fair and equitable as possible, always considering that the county doesn't have unlimited resources. Wish we had more, could do more, but within reason, we've tried to be a very responsible employer. And I think this is a good step in that direction. I commend you for whatever process you used to come up with these items of consideration.
That was everybody. That's everybody.
It worked. I like what I'm seeing here, and I like the tone of it. I like the direction of it. Along with what we're looking at for employees, there are people in our county that are going to be substantially harmed by all these restrictions and closures. Take a server at a restaurant, for example. Depends on their tips for an income. Makes $1 an hour maybe without tips. And now they basically have no job because the restaurants are closing at the times when they would normally make their best tips. We're going to have a lot of people in trouble in our county because of these restrictions and cancellations and closures. And the reason I'm mentioning that is I think some time and energy, some thought should be put into what DSS can do to help be the safety net that's going to be needed to pick up the pieces from all that's going to likely to be happening with all these closures and everything that we're having to deal with. It's going to really hit some people hard. And I don't like to see people hurt. I really don't. I like for us to be able to pick up the pieces when it's necessary. We're talking good people. We're not talking deadbeats. We're talking a lot of people trying to work and make a living. They're living from paycheck to paycheck. Now they're not going to get a paycheck to speak of. So what can we do about that? What's being done, or what thought is being put into that particular aspect of this situation? One thing to me, the quicker we can get it behind us, the less harm and the less damage is done to the kind of people I'm referring to.
What I'm praying for.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're doing this for employees, but what about the people in our county that's going to be severely harmed by some of these things that are taking place? Oh, it's nice to say, yeah, close all the restaurants for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But my gosh, look what you're doing to some of these people that are barely getting by. And restaurants are just one thing. There's a lot of other people out there too that's going to not get the paycheck they're used to getting because of all these closures and everything.
I would hope that our governor has took that in consideration.
We are the government.
Our governor. Our governor.
Governor. Yeah, but as far as what happens in the county, we are the government.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
so what can we do to encourage social services, for example, to step in where they need to?
They're already doing it, I would imagine.
Well, do we know they
There's
are, or
programs.
do we?
Yeah, that's what they do every day.
I know they do it every day, but these are not ordinary times.
I understand, but I mean, they're not dummies. They know what
Yes.
to react to
Discussion.
this stuff.
Stacy is doing everything she possibly can to make sure that the right types of policies are put in place. She spoke with Shannon today on wanting to set up. You may can talk more on that. The health department is doing everything they can to make sure that people are kept safe, and they are administering good health to the citizens of Stokes County, and they're doing everything they possibly can, Commissioner Walker, to make sure that we place the right procedures in act to make sure that our citizens are taken care of by Stokes County at least.
I wouldn't expect less. That's exactly what I would expect to hear in these circumstances. It's just when I read through the information that we have here, I didn't see anything mentioned particularly referring to social services.
We aren't
What they
gonna,
might be
we're
doing.
gonna ask them to do anything extra, they're already, struggling with themselves down there, and they are, people will come in and apply for programs, assistance, there's lots of help there. And the governor's also waiving the 1 week wait period for unemployment, and they don't have to look for employment while they're receiving that unemployment, sort of like underemployment while that's going on. So that will help too, but there are programs in place that DSS offers every day that will help these folks in this situation as well.
Now, some of these people that are in this particular situation probably have not been there before.
Right.
They don't know even what's available for them or how to go about accessing the resources that are available. But it sounds like there are some steps being taken to help that particular part of the process that we're dealing with. And I don't like to see people hurt. And I know there's going to be people hurt when their income's cut off. But anyway, again, I commend our staff for coming up with these recommendations. There's probably some other things that you haven't even thought of yet, possibly. But I think this is a good step in the right direction, and I'm certainly on board. You certainly have my concurrence. And would be interested in anything else that you can think of along with what you're suggesting at this time.
Yeah, and I'm sure if this, like I said, God forbid, it happened to get really, really bad, but I'm sure there's things that our department heads will bring to our attention, saying, hey, let's try this, and I have no problem in calling you guys and saying, hey, can I move forward with areas of other areas of helping our folks.
One other thing, we had an interest in piece of information on our desk when I got here and started looking through things.
I'm gonna talk about it. We're gonna get
So
to
we're
it.
gonna address
Yes.
this. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Morris.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Chairman. On number one, Jake, I'm good with that. Only question I have is, how will these people know this and not just come anyway?
We would
Do you have some plan for that?
have to put it out on the on the website. We'd have to.
Y'all get Neil to put it in the paper?
We
You get Neil to put it in the
could put it
paper?
in the paper. We could put it on Facebook. We would use the technology that I don't know how to use the best we possibly can, and making sure that people finds out that, hey, the Stokes County has waived the fees if you would just pay your car taxes online. Or some people, they ain't gonna pay it. They'll come up here before they do that. Or if nothing else, drive up here and drop it off in the drop box out here.
Right.
And that way you're not coming in and exposing yourself to something.
Okay, that's good. I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure that, and maybe Neil will watch our meeting and write a story about this without us having to pay for it, hopefully. So I'm good with that. On number B, the public works thing, what's the sunset date for that? How long is it gonna last? Cutting off the water. I mean, do you
This
have,
is the same time period of April the 30th. If you need to extend it, and we see that we need to extend, I'll bring it back before the commissioners on the 14th and have it extended if it looks like the things are getting worse.
so now it's April 30th at this
April
point.
30th.
You're gonna do it until April 30th. Okay, I'm good with that. I have problems with the third one from an internal control perspective, for one thing. Under our policy, unless it's changed, it hadn't changed since I've been here, the county manager already has authority to do $5,000 without telling us till after the fact. I would think most things would come in that 5. If we're gonna do more than 5, I would prefer to be notified before it's done instead of afterwards. And you kind of said you'd do that anyway a while ago.
I would notify each one.
And if
of
it was
them.
anything really major or something to do with this epidemic, we would need to call an emergency meeting for something. But if something large, like an HVAC unit or something that just couldn't wait,
Yeah.
we'd let you know and then proceed with that.
But if it's in the 5,000 range, you already have the authority, so I would just very freely use that to address anything associated with the virus and just tell us after the fact. If you kind of modify it to that extent where we are notified if it's over 5,000 before. I mean, and you could just make it, give us a very short notification. If we see it, we see it. If we don't, then go do it. But
Anything over 5,000, the board is notified.
yeah, just from an internal control perspective, so the auditors look at this and don't have any questions about what we were doing. And then the last one, you're basically they're going to use their sick leave first. Then you're asking our approval to let other employees donate leave outside of FMLA. Okay, I'm fine with that, I think, if they want to donate it. Thing on the advanced leave, I think that's another internal control issue. If we're going to give them, if we're going to approve, who's going to approve the advanced leave? You?
Well, yes,
Specifically.
it would come before the HR department and myself, and
Okay.
we would review each case.
Okay, I think you probably need to have a limit on how much of that you'll approve for internal control purposes.
Yeah.
I don't know what that limit should be, but
There are
not
some-
make it unlimited or
there are
not make a
some-
giant number.
There's some states, not North Carolina yet, but some states I read online are given, the ones that are really having a lot of cases, given 80 hours of sick time into an employee bank, that everybody's getting across the board.
Yeah, that was my
So,
next point,
that's-
that the federal government is addressing this very issue, and they may do something that supersedes what we need to do here. So if the federal government puts a plan in place, I'd rather use theirs than ours.
Oh, yeah.
If they do, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that's in that bill that they're looking at tonight. So, but if not, I would at least put, and then then the last thing you said, you're gonna write off any time if they leave early, is that what it was?
This would be someone that actually left due to other employment somewhere else, and then they have not accrued the time to get back due to what they took off.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with that as long as we don't give them an extended amount of
Would you like to say we're going to give them
not to exceed.
2 weeks, which would be 75 hours?
Yeah, I would just say a not to exceed some amount, and whatever the rest of the board's comfortable with. Then I'm good with it with those changes. I need to make a motion to approve all these four with the.
Yes, sir, that's what I'm requesting.
We want to say not to exceed 75 hours, which would be 2 weeks of time. Is everybody
That
okay with
seems
that
reasonable to
statement?
me.
Yeah.
Fine with that.
And then, if the virus is involved and they end up using all that, we could still look at some way of taking care of them. That's what the president's trying to do.
Everything's telling you to be really flexible with
Yeah.
your time and leave and try to encourage people to be off if they need to be off, not come in, spread it to anybody else, so.
I make a motion, we approve these four with the changes. Everybody okay with that?
Second. I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Either way.
Either one of us.
Second
Jimmy
with
and myself,
discussion.
we both seconded.
Okay,
You choose, Shannon.
okay.
Pick one.
But I do have some discussion. I think Commissioner Morris mentioned something caught my interest in a positive way, and that is that our state and federal governments are working to kind of tie some of the loose ends together and help address certain issues in positive ways regarding this challenge we're facing. And the reason I'm mentioning this, I would expect wherever there's something available from the federal or state government, we would try to access that to whatever degree possible before we use local funds, as long as whatever they are putting in place is adequate to address the needs that we've identified. Does that need to be stated somewhere in what we're approving, or is it just a again,
I don't
something
think
that
so. I
you
mean,
feel like?
these are just things we tried to
anyway?
come up with in case things start to happen here and they have not stepped in and given us the
Right.
authority to do those things. We would always use their money first,
Right.
of course.
Because,
But just in case we have a situation come up, we have the right to handle it and take care of that employee at that time. But yeah, if that was the case, we'd always go with the other first.
the package that's brought before the Senate tonight, with Mitch McConnell, they're saying it could be up to $1 trillion package to help the states and the local counties out. So I think there's going to be a lot of money put into this to try to get it controlled as quickly as possible. But as you
That's
said,
encouraging.
it
That's
might pass down to the county level.
pretty significant amount.
Yeah.
And also along with that, along with what Commissioner Mendenhall is mentioning, as far as what's going on in Washington, if we could put ourselves in a position where whatever funds we spend and federal or state funds become available, then I'd like for us to be in the best position possible to recover whatever local funds we could.
It's in that
I'm sure y'all are
proclamation.
probably taking that approach anyway, but.
That's in that proclamation I signed yesterday and put out.
State of emergency.
And we are announcing this to all the departments to make sure they keep in mind that anything that is spent due to the outbreak of COVID-19, please keep a record of it.
And that's one reason why I mentioned that adequate and appropriate record keeping would be in place, so if we can recover some funds, we'd have data to use with our request.
Correct.
All right, we're good? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We'll move on now to the items of interest. There's just some stuff that's happened since March 10th. On March 10th, 2020, there was a meeting held with the County Management, Human Resources, and Emergency Management to provide an overview of the COVID-19 and discuss potential impacts on Stokes County. On March 13th, there was a stakeholders meeting with several leaders throughout the county in which the Health Director, Tammy Martin, provided an update to COVID and CDC and state recommendations. March 16th, there was a department head meeting held to discuss the potential of shutting down some departments if needed, working a staggered schedule, or possibly working from home if feasible. There was much discussion between the department heads and the county manager on how this would affect each department. At this time, all departments within Stokes County Government Center are still open. On March 16th as well, there was an emergency meeting held with the Board of Health to discuss a plan action in which we've been provided a copy of. On March 17th, there was a conference call with River Street regarding their offer to provide access points for internet throughout the county during this time. And when I read this last point, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Morris, who was able to be on the phone conference today with that. Also, today, the Board of Education is closing to the public. The old courthouse building will have a sign on the front door to call for assistance. And Commissioner Morris, if you don't mind at this time, just go ahead and give us an update on what was on the conference call with River Street.
Okay, will do, Mr. Chairman. The River Street stepped up, given the emergency situation that we're in, and offered to implement a plan in Stokes County similar to something they're doing in Wilkes County where they live. And basically, what they want to do is try to help us give the school kids access to internet as much as possible during the times that they're on this extended absences from school. And we did a conference call today. It was primarily school folks. Diana was on it. She's back there, I think, and Jake and myself, Shannon, and several other folks from the school, and then some River Street folks. And basically what they're going to do is provide some access points where you can go in your car and download and upload information for your studies, for the students to be able to complete their studies and do as much as possible during this crisis and during the times that the schools are closed. I want to read a little bit of this email that is a summary email that was sent out after the phone call for the benefit of the folks in the audience and give you an idea of what it's all about. There's basically three options they're going to do. The first option is the school staff suggested 5 school sites where the need would be most prevalent, and that's Sandy Ridge, Pine Hall, South Stokes, Piney Grove, and West Stokes. And River Street will install at no fee or charge to the Stokes County school system what's called a fiber NID, a network interface device, at each of the 5 schools nearest the location where our current fiber drop is terminated inside the school. South Data, who is a contractor for the school system that inside the schools for internet, will provide the access points to connect into that network interface device. South Data has provided a pricing quote of $182 per point. River Street's also going to cover the South Data cost. So River Street's cost is a little under $1,000 per access point that they're going to put in, and there's 7 of them totally that they're looking at total at this time. 1 access per school is required, and if the money's not available in the school system funding, they will cover it, which I just said. That's basically what they offered to do today. For site, we also talked about the 7 sites, which that's 5 of them, the schools that I just mentioned. Then for site, we talked about doing it at the early college, and that we didn't decide to do one there, yes or no, but the school system took an action to decide if that would be another point that they would need one. We're also going to put one at the Stokes County Government Center in this building that we're sitting in. And then the last 2 access points, which will be in a single location, will be at the River Street building downtown. They'll have one in the front and one that shoots backwards up the hill, so you can park on both sides of the building and have access for that. As I mentioned to Chairman earlier, they're meeting to coordinate the schedules tomorrow. They anticipate having all this up and running by Wednesday of next week if everything goes okay. Other things we discussed, there's also 2 or 3 fire departments that we could possibly do these in. I don't think the school folks sounded like there was a real need to do that at this point, but that's a potential option for future emergencies. School system's also going to contact Surrey Communications to see if we need to do anything similar to this in the area of the county that they cover that's not covered by River Street. And as I mentioned, these are designed for people not to congregate and violate the social distance rules, but to come up in their car and be able to get into the internet and download and upload stuff for their schoolwork. And the good thing about these is that they're not permanent because if they were, they would have to be a billing involved. But so what they will basically do is use these for this emergency. Then they'll turn it all off, and then if we have a future emergency, the system will be ready to turn on with the flip of a switch. So we've got basically a future little bit of infrastructure here for future emergencies that, especially related to internet in the school system. So that's underway. May get modified slightly as they work with the school system. It doesn't appear to be any cost to the county or the school system to do this.
I know you have a question, don't you?
Yeah, I was hoping and really just glanced at this information. I was thinking that it was a way on an emergency basis to get internet wireless or in some way to the areas of our county that didn't have internet. Now, it is a step in that direction because of all those access points, and I'm sure it would certainly think it would be used. But my bubble kind of burst when I heard Commissioner Morris describing it, because I thought it was more along the lines of this is a way to really do a quick fix and get something out there for people who need it during this time when all these kids are at home and they need access to the internet more than ever. Also, people are being encouraged to work from home. And without internet, that's much more of a challenge, I'm sure, than trying to work from home if they have broadband access. So it just all is pointing out the need we have in our county, to be fair to as many possible, of somehow to get this internet access, broadband access in place. And I'm happy that River Street is working with the county and with the schools to do something that's going to help with the situation. But I wish there were more that could be done to actually bring it to people's homes, particularly in a time of need like we're facing right now.
So when we get
That's
things
good.
back to normal, we can get back on that data, what they've got going on.
That's not technically feasible or possible for an emergency like that. So that's like a $20-30 million project you're talking about. And it won't even happen quick if you had that funding because of the lead
I
time
talk about months getting in
through
place.
the whole county, yeah.
But, I mean, I'm glad that River Street is, decided to come in and help us out. At least have something for some of these kids and parents who have nothing at all, at least come there and download what they need, take off back at home. So I do appreciate you stepping in on this part. You have something else? Okay. Commissioner Mendenhall?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Moore, did you have another comment?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you, sir, for taking your time to be on that conference call and getting us updated on that.
No problem.
All right, updates by departments at risk on measures to be taken to protect employees and citizens. The senior citizens, beginning March 23rd, all senior citizens' activities are canceled. Congregate meals sites are closed. Meals are still being delivered by volunteers to those in need, but are being dropped off, and no one is entering the homes. Veteran Services, the State Service Office is asking our office to limit face-to-face meetings. Transactions are being completed by phone within reason. Some stuff from our health department. Authorizing 90-day refills by phone to keep citizens from having to come in for routine visits. The WIC program is operating through drive-through. I'm sorry, can you mind reading this right here? My signs is about to kill me, my vision get kind of blurred, so.
The WIC program is operating through drive-through. They're offering a triage nurse that's dedicated to accepting calls related to the virus. The COVID-19 testing offered through a drive-through also at our health department, and a tent is being set up outside. I'm not sure if that was completed today, but they're setting that up outside for them to test outside the health department. There are currently, last night, there were 3 test kits available and 3 more on the way. I don't know if that's changed today. Is that still true? I know it changes by the minute.
We are ordering more lab work.
Okay.
We're down 1 state kit today.
Okay. And then at last night's Board of Health meeting, the health department had tested 2 individuals and not received results yet. 1 resident is self-quarantined. Mountain View Medical and King had tested 9 with 6 negative results and 3 with results not received yet. It can take up to 72 hours to receive those results, so we won't have the ones tested this week until later on in the week. They're getting updates every day at 11 from the CDC and a conference call at 2 each day with more updates from the state. So they're just kind of keeping themselves in the loop of what's going on and handling as best they can and trying to do as much outside the health department as possible to keep from having people coming in and out of the building as much as they can. So anything else you guys want to add that's happened today or anything that I don't know about from last night?
As of right now, there's 40 cases in North Carolina.
Okay.
I think we went, but it's 46 at the end of the
46.
day. This was at that email. 0 confirmed in Stokes, but 12 pending that we know of.
Okay. The 0 confirmed, 12 pending. Okay. And you guys are getting notifications of anybody that's being tested symptomatic or as much as with, as they're reporting?
Sometimes.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Okay. At the arts place, I spoke with Eddie. He's in the process of canceling events
Question on
that
that
are.
one, Shannon. I have a question.
Oh,
for you.
yeah, sure.
What's the plan if we have one of our county employees turn up with a positive test?
Is it okay that I take that?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Would you do me a
If you don't
favor?
mind, come up here to the
That way we
microphone.
can hear you on. Just,
All right.
that puts you out to the
So
world so everybody
I'm
can
not
hear
a
you.
great public speaker. So,
You're a good public speaker.
a county employee, although they're much, they're special to us, they are still a community member and we would treat them like anyone else. So as soon as we were to receive a positive, county employee or otherwise, we would go into contact tracing and investigations. So that would mean, unfortunately, you know, let me just do it this way. If I
Do a
were-
hypothetical, do a
okay, If I
hypothetical.
were to be tested positive for COVID-19, then everyone down there at the health department who, unless they change the guidance before then, is deemed in close contact with me. That would be anyone within 6 feet of me for 10 minutes or longer, which truly is probably going to be a lot of our staff because we're trying to update them daily on that too. But at that point, those folks would go into the 14-day monitoring. And, you know, that would either be, right now we would probably just self-monitor, but we would probably try not to see any patients at that time. We are doing everything in our power to keep us safe. You know, we're putting on all our PPE and going outside to test these folks. And there's only one of us doing that. So, and the person who is doing it now is our CD nurse. She has an office back in the back corner and truly doesn't have as much contact with the rest of us as, say, I would. So I feel like we have the measures in place to protect, say, a health department employee from COVID-19 as well as we can. But if that were to happen, we would have to handle the contact investigation and tracing just like we would with any community member, and that would be the 14-day symptom review and symptom check.
Are you responsible for doing it for any county resident that tests positive as well?
Yes.
Is your health department?
Yes, sir.
You
We
have to
are.
do that?
Anybody in the county.
Okay, and within the county border?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so you're just waiting to get ready to do that, right?
We are. We're ready.
Okay.
We're ready.
I'm looking at this, and it says that it takes up to 72 hours to receive a test result. And I see that y'all tested 2 individuals up to this point, is that correct? But you haven't received the results yet? More today. So this is not,
That was up last night.
okay,
We had a meeting.
so,
Was there,
It's been a really long day, but we've tested 3 today.
okay,
And those
I'm just
are
wanting to get
pending.
some
And,
approximation.
And if you don't mind me interject, the 72 hours is what we're seeing for LabCorp. The folks with no insurance, we're sending those to state lab so they don't incur a cost. State lab takes a little bit longer. They are ramping up their services and trying to get those tests out to us much quicker, but we are seeing a little bit longer than 72 hours with the state lab.
Okay, so as I see this, the health department now has tested 5, and Mountain View has tested, this was as of last night, I'm assuming, tested 9 with 6 negatives, 3 with no results yet. However, you do have in the item, and of course, I don't need any names or anything other than, it says 1 resident is self-quarantined. Can you tell me why we have a self-quarantine when we don't have any positives yet?
I can, unless you want to.
we had an individual traveler, he went to Taiwan. His daughter and his wife are there, but they can't come here. They're trying to get their citizenship. But he traveled there and came back, and he had been monitored there for 4 weeks. But they advised us when he got back into the States that he was back, and we call every day to see if he has a temperature. He doesn't have any symptoms, and he lives alone. So he's self-monitoring, and he has 5 more days as of today.
Okay,
He'll be off.
all right, thank you.
And one other question. You want to go first? You go ahead. Just one other question. On mass gatherings, what guidance or what rules are we under? I know we got the restaurant rule now that the governor did today. We have suggestions from the federal government. We have a 100, I think, 100-person mandate from the governor. You have, that's law, right? You have to do that. So what can we enforce based on on what guidance we have? Are we trying to enforce guidance, or are we trying to enforce the statutory or whatever is required by executive order?
As of right now, we're on the 50 or less.
And how is that, how do you back that up based on the governor says 100?
Well, as the CDC gave that guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and as they continue to shut down more things, then I can go above and beyond the governor and make it more strict. So as of today, we're at 50.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may change tomorrow, but right now it's 50 or less.
Okay, the CDC, is that a CDC mandate?
That is a recommendation, but if you're closing, dining in restaurants, I don't see why we should gather 50 or more people.
Mm-hmm. So it's arbitrary, though.
It is, but like they said, it's all about prevention right now, because you don't know what could happen.
Why is it not 30 then, or 10?
Well, if you go by the president, it is 10.
It is 10 now by the president.
I know, but what I'm saying, I don't know if you get my point. We got a number we have to enforce. Then we got all these other, I heard a discussion last night that the guy up there with Trump wanted to do 10, and the governor in Ohio wanted to do 25. And the doctor says, well, it really not a big difference between 10 and 25. So my point is, I like to see something that's concrete, that's backed up with some real authority. Otherwise, I don't think we should be enforcing it.
As of now, you either follow, if your county has not set a guideline number, you follow the governor. Now, for counties, like if I've set the 50, then we're to follow the 50. And if I change tomorrow and say we need 10 or less, then we'll go by that. And it may be one of those, like with that 15 days. You come back in 2 weeks and you reassess, and it may go back up to 50. But in 2 weeks, it may
Who
be
has
longer.
the authority to set the number?
I came for the county.
Okay, it's not us, it's you.
No, it's me. It's the Board of Health.
Okay. So why don't y'all set a number and put it
We are
out?
tomorrow.
Oh,
We're
okay.
voting on it tonight.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. That'd be good. Then you have
There will
some,
be a release tomorrow, press release.
yeah, I just wouldn't try to enforce something with no teeth in it, so.
And also, I believe she's going to send it to all of us, any kind of social media or any way we can help get the word out there. Help, I'm sure you'd be more.
What's your number gonna be,
It will
50?
be in the morning, because
To
we have
50?
to have, it's gonna be 10.
10.
We have to have the votes in from all the members by 10 in the morning. So
I mean, so for what number? 50 people or
10 or less.
So you're going to restrict any gathering of 10?
Yes, mass.
Any
gatherings.
larger than 10?
Public gatherings. Now, I'm gonna make the exception, it's gonna be worded, except for work or essential services that have to keep going.
Oh, okay.
If you just want to go out and have a little party or something, then it's going to be 10 or less. I mean,
Okay.
It's not time to go out, it's social distancing time.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
It's sort of like what this says in your Board of Health letter that you released this morning, that you and Keith, where the avoid social gatherings in groups of 10 or more than 10 people, churches and funeral homes should adhere to this recommendation. So you're going to keep that the same, I
And I'm
think.
going to send that letter out to them too tomorrow.
They have a copy of it in this too, but you're going to change that.
Yeah, when I
And
get
make
it.
sure you send us the latest every time you change that number. We need it right then.
And in 2 weeks, we will assess.
Okay.
And if it's as bad or worse than it is now, then we will stay at that 10. But if not, then we might go back up to 50 and see how it works out.
Okay. What's the governor, is he going to stay at 100?
Honestly, I don't know. It changes day to day. It depends on how, because this morning we had 30 cases, now we have 46. I mean, that's in less than 12 hours.
Oh, okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Tammy, I appreciate all you're doing to try to deal with this in as positive a way as possible. I can only imagine, though, how concerned or even upset in some situations folks are going to be when they're told they can't go to church. That's going to really hit hard with some folks. And there's other situations as well, I'm sure, where folks are going to say, why? They're going to say, well, gee, 46 people out of 7 million, none in Stokes County, and you're telling me I can't go to church because of limitations? That could get us some phone calls.
I'm sure.
So let me see if I understand. You're gonna set a limit of 10, more than likely. It will be a vote of the board, I think. And at what point in time or when will you reevaluate with the possibility of lifting the limit or increasing it?
In 15 days, we're going, like with the president, we're going to reevaluate then, because I think that's what he's saying, in 15 days. You're going to have to give it 2 weeks for the people that are already isolated or quarantined, where it spreads so fast, to see if it's going to double up, because it just keeps getting more and more each day. So in 2 weeks, which will be, what's that date, was it March? That you're going to reassess, whatever that date is, 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'll just say. I will reevaluate the situation. We may have a case by then.
Which will be April the 1st.
Okay, by April the 1st. And if we do, then if it keeps going and we have like 20 cases by then, which we could, then it may still stay at 10. And I think at that point, the governor is going to make more of not a recommendation, but he's going to say no more than 10, because it's going fast.
My guess is not everybody will pay attention to that 10 limit. And I can see some churches continuing to have services. For example, some folks who are used to gathering socially for whatever reason, they're going to want to continue. How strict do you anticipate the enforcement to be? Is somebody going to go to a church and say, you can't do this?
I'm going to have to get with the Board of Health and see how strict they want to enforce this. Because churches, I think, they're still gathering, but at this time, they should have stopped with last week's message from the governor. Because I think the fear has set in on most of the public. They're not going anyway. Because that's like with some of our appointments. They're not showing up because they're scared to come out. So I don't think the churches will go against it. There may be a few that I don't know about that might, but I don't think there's going to be that many that do.
Right. I know I saw a preacher, a pastor on TV. He's down in Winston-Salem. He's been here to speak to us at times, saying that he would not comply with the limit because he didn't think there was sufficient justification for it. But when I saw him, I had to think, well, you know, he's probably not by himself. There's probably others out there that'll see it the same way. Anyway, sounds like you have taken some steps, hopefully, to try to deal with it. You're saying 15 days. I like the sound of that. And that gives me something that if somebody says, well, how long am I going to have to do this, have to take these steps, then that gives me a point in time or a time that I can say, well, you know, it's been looked at for 15 days for now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just wonder, I think you could run into real trouble with this, and the reason is we have lots of counties that have lots of cases, and we're a county with no cases, and the governor set 100's the limit for those counties with lots of cases.
Right.
And so then we have no cases, and we're going to do 10. So,
That's a good question.
I don't understand why the governor don't fix this for the state instead of having everybody out here doing different things. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think
Necessarily.
you ask a good question, because I think in his view, he did fix it with 100. I mean, it's right here, it's a state proclamation.
Yeah, I know, I understand. Okay.
Our state executive order number 117.
That's why I'm so glad we have a health board now.
Yep.
Thank you, Tammy. Any more questions, Commissioner Howell?
No, I didn't have it.
Like I said, the next thing is, like Commissioner Walker said, that as far as the enforcement, that'll be out to us tomorrow as well. But, they're gonna do what they wanna do anyway. I mean, that's one of the things, that's their right. It's just giving more guidelines to get by and so on.
I kind of hate doing things that I know I can't enforce right from the get-go. It kind of Doesn't make sense.
Did you get through all that right there? I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
The arts place is where we got to.
Arts Place, okay. I'll go ahead and let you finish it.
Okay. So the Arts Place, they're in the process of canceling events to adhere with the mass gathering regulations for everyone's protection. You know, everyone that would attend there, as well as the people that were coming in. They'll stay open as usual as far as the space there, but they just won't have large events going on. Register of Deeds, Brandon Hooker submitted a plan of action for his office related to the COVID-19, and you have a copy of that at the back of your information there. All the rest of the departments are doing everything they can to protect their employees and citizens by encouraging people to follow the CDC and state guidelines set forth in the state of emergency. And this was like what we talked about tonight with, it's rapidly changing every day, the events surrounding this outbreak. And so we were just requesting if the board wants to authorize the county manager to contact the chairman and the board, of course, in the event that more extreme measures need to take place. Like if we were to have an employee tomorrow come back and test positive, something might need to happen that we didn't talk about here tonight. It might have to happen before we could get another meeting called. So we want a chance to inform you of that, but a chance for them to also to start to take action to prevent other employees from being, in a situation where they may also become positive. So we'd keep the board up to date on any changes made out, after tonight, any other things happening, and of course call any meetings that we possibly could. But sometimes with something like this, everybody's in sort of uncharted waters here. We don't really know what's going to happen from day to day.
I just prefer you contact all of us instead of just the chairman if
Well,
something
absolutely.
Well, if they would
Contact
contact me, I will
everybody.
contact y'all.
Okay, that's fine then.
And, Brandon, would you like to come up and give some stuff on what you put in place so the public knows?
Sure. Basically, I'm just requesting authorization to alter hours to close to the public if it becomes necessary. And I put in the statement, the first confirmed case, and I did so I don't have to wait on another meeting for the Board of Commissioners. I already have the authorization they can grant to me this evening to close the office to the public. To put it in perspective, I did this because the office is small. There's 4 people in the office. And to put it in perspective, there's 16 in the tax office. It'd be like losing 4 people in the tax office out of the 16 if one of mine leave. And one has. Our part-time person has decided to take a leave of absence due to age and medical history. So we're down to 3. And if one gets sick, there goes another staff member. So I did this just to put some precautions in place. That's why I requested authorization to close to the public if there's a confirmed case. And I'm not saying I will, but I want the authorization to do so. I'm requesting it in case the virus spreads so rapidly. We're left in a situation where I don't have time to wait on the board to meet. But anyway, here's the steps that we've taken or that we can take. We can urge all submitters to use our electronic recording system, which about 65 to 70% of our recordings are already electronic. A matter of fact, one of these the Simplifile, which is the largest recording vendor, electronic recording vendor, is waiving the startup fee to law firms or banks who want to sign up to submit documents electronically. There's a drop box right out here. People can drop off documents and packages for us. We will accept FedEx, UPS, and the mail. If you can't get it to us that way, then you're not going to get it to us at all. And also, our online vital records request program that I started last month. People can make use of that, and if internet availability is a problem, then they can mail a written request into us, and we'll process the order that way. The only thing with that is the guest certificate program. There's a $3.50 convenience fee. And I spoke with Courthouse Computers today, and they're going to waive that fee. The only thing they would ask is if the county to incur the finance charges as part of that, and that averages out to about $1 per transaction. And to put that in perspective, since this began, the first order we processed was February 5th, and we've processed 17 in 7 weeks. So even if that number doubled, we're looking at $35 in the next 2 months or so. So I mean, to me, that's a small price to pay for the health of employees. I'm also going to be asking funeral homes to present the death certificates they're bringing to us. Well, they have to go to the health department first anyway. we're the last place that gets them, and just leave them with the health department instead of coming to the office, so the health department can give it to us through the interdepartment mail. Also notaries needing to take the oath of office, couples wanting marriage license, veterans needing to record discharge papers, can call and make an appointment to do so. And I'm gonna ask them a couple of questions, and one thing is gonna be if you run a temperature in the last 48 hours or so, you traveled outside the county, if you feel like you're sick, please, if this can wait, please do so. That's just some of the steps we're taking right now, and by law, I can't close the office to the public without your approval. That's why I'm here.
Any questions, Mr. Hooker, on this?
I got a couple. You answered one of them already. I wondered why we needed to give you approval for this, but the law says we have to.
Yeah, well, I mean, the board sets my hours and my budget, and that's the oversight you have over me, and that's one thing I'll have to ask permission for.
Okay, well, I have a problem with elected officials having to ask other elected officials. But
Yeah.
but anyway, that's fine if that's the way it's done. You've already lost one person. Have you considered doing this, go ahead and do this now? I mean-
Well, I could, we could, but I wanted some kind of, I didn't want to be, you're gonna get hit either way you go, and you guys know that.
Yeah. Let me ask you one other quick question. Do you have, would you say you have more people come to your office to do transactions from outside the county than other departments do? Based on the nature of the business that you do?
Well, probably because most people that come to, say, DSS, for example, they're gonna be Stokes County residents, health department too, tax office definitely. We have attorneys from outside the county that come in who don't e-record. Most of them do, but some of them don't. We've got a couple from Greensboro, one or two from Winston that comes up occasionally. But that's very infrequent right now. That has been for some time. But most of the people that come to the office are gonna be local attorneys. And
But you do have people coming that are walking around where these cases are already positive.
yeah.
No, I mean, I support you doing it any time you think you need to, not just waiting for the first Stokes County case.
Well, I want to also make a point to mention that our vendor has put in several scenarios where they can set us up at our homes to operate using their equipment. We can use our personal equipment. It's going to require a virtual private network, and they can't guarantee that our personal computers doesn't have ransomware, malware, or whatever.
Yeah.
So the best case there would be for them to set up at least one employee's home, more likely mine or my assistant's home, with everything we need to function. That's the case I don't want to have to get to right now. I think we'll be
Yeah.
okay if with the 3 of us working, if we can just limit contact with the public.
Yeah, and maybe just start doing the appointment thing early.
Yeah.
And do appointment, you can kind of screen them a little bit by doing appointments and ask them some questions and
Yeah.
stuff, so.
My
Anyway.
main concern with this is just we're just a small staff, and I didn't
I
want.
know, yeah, with one gone already, that concerns me too, so I'll support whatever you want to do to minimize the risk.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walker?
Brenda, the first item kind of catches my attention. Are you aware of any other counties? Now, I know you have provisions in place to continue to provide service, but are you aware of any other counties or not that are closing their office if they have a case in their county?
Absolutely.
How many what percent would you say are
We are on, every register is part of a Google group, email group. And so when we send an email to that group, we all get it. And that's, my email inbox is full of those from across the state. Montgomery County, Alamance County, Chatham County, Surrey County is expected to close tomorrow. 3 or 4 more, I can't name them all right now, but there's close to 10 or so that I know are gonna be closing within the week, to the public altogether. And putting most of these steps already in place.
If you close your office, and I think we're giving you permission to close it, I'm not hearing you say you have to close it.
Right.
But if the office closes, how long would it remain closed?
Well, that's a good question, but that I would assume would be my kind of my discretion, but I would talk to Jake and the board, to see, and even Tammy if need be, to see what kind of timeline we're gonna be on. that's something that we haven't looked at yet. And I haven't heard any of my other fellow registrars talk about when they're gonna resume normal operations. But especially as long as this health risk is, as bad as it is, I think it's wise to limit contact.
You're exposed, you're shut down for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody tests positive in the office, we're gonna shut down. And
Of course,
what
that-
we'll do is set up a home. I'll get the vendor come out and set up one of our homes to use, because there's no need to spread that.
Of course, you would shut down, given the very limited staff you have, if there were to happen to be a case in your office, but one case out of 46,000 folks is not very many.
Right.
I can see the possibility of that raising some questions. Was that really necessary? But, you know, we're giving you, it appears if we approve this, we're giving you permission to use that option should you choose or should you feel like it's necessary to. I don't know that you are just carte blanche going to shut your office down if there is a case somewhere in Stokes County.
We're not gonna close the office. The work will continue. What I'm talking about is just closing the office to the public, just keep them from coming in.
That's what I was referring to,
Yeah.
closing the office to the public.
Yeah,
There are ways to still do business.
absolutely. Like I said, we can
Your
function.
department is not closed, it's closed to public access.
It's to the point that they can make appointments if they have to come in.
Right.
Now, the thing where I see with that is notary commissions may expire, and they may lose their notary if they don't come in, and we'll just have them call us and make an appointment to come in. We just don't want a lot of people in the office at one time. We have couples coming in to get marriage license, and they may get married here at the courthouse, and they have 7 or 8 people with them. That's absolutely out of the question. We're gonna limit it to the couple only.
Well, you're in charge of your department, so you put some thought into this, obviously. You just didn't kind of sit down and start writing them without thinking about the implications, ramifications. But, strange times. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Howell, do you have anything?
No, they covered everything.
Okay.
Very valid.
Brennan, it's like you've already taken steps to get everything going. Appreciate you putting forward the time and effort on that. And as far as I said, I don't have no problems. I kind of agree with Commissioner Morris. I don't think one of the elected officials should be able to tell another one what to do, but unfortunately, that's the way the law reads. So with that right there, do I have a motion on this?
Make a motion to give Brandon the authorization to close his office. If in his opinion, he feels it necessary for the safety of the employees, et cetera.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've had
We also need to take a vote on, no, we need to take a vote on, no? Okay.
I remember the effort I made when I determined different times I wanted to.
All right. Is there any more business to be taken care of? All right. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.